It's unbelievable what's happening with John Harbaugh's Ravens. A team that has always been known for defense, discipline, and intensity now looks completely lost. At home, they took a historic beating from the Texans. The defense vanished. The offense couldn't get anything going, and the crowd finally lost its patience, booing their own coach, something you almost never see in Baltimore. But the worst part isn't just a loss. It's what it means for the rest of the season. How can a team that's always competed at the top of the division look this shaken in the first few weeks? What's really going on with the roster and coaching staff? And do the Ravens still have any chance of bouncing back? Or are we watching the start of a total collapse? It was one of those games no one in Baltimore will forget anytime soon, and not for the right reasons. The M&T Bank Stadium experienced a nightmare afternoon as the Texans ran over the Ravens 44-10. And what's even more shocking is that Houston came in with roller coaster season, an offense that barely scored 10 points in half their games. Yet against Baltimore, they looked unstoppable. The Ravens' defense, usually the backbone of the team in tough moments, simply disappeared. Nothing went right. Missed tackles, blown coverages, penalties at critical moments. It was like every play exposed a new weakness. The team looked exhausted, unfocused, and, most importantly, helpless. Fans watched in stunned silence, trying to understand how a team used to competing at the highest level could look so lost. And to make it worse, this was the Ravens' first ever home loss to the Texans, a symbolic blow that hurt even more than the score itself. It's hard to blame just one thing when everything goes wrong like this. Lamar Jackson and Kyle Hamilton being out could be excuses, but this was a collective failure. The offense didn't perform, the defense collapsed, and the team completely lost emotional control. At several points, it seemed like the players were just waiting for the clock to run out. There was a lack of leadership on the field and intensity off it. That 44-10 score isn't just a number. It's a snapshot of a team that lost its identity. Baltimore has always been synonymous with strength, discipline, and dominant defense, but none of that showed up on Sunday. It's the kind of loss that changes a locker room atmosphere, shakes confidence, and sets every internal alarm off. And the reaction started almost immediately as the fans, used to supporting the team to the very end, finally ran out of patience. The Ravens' defense has always been the heart of this team, the unit that commands respect and sets the pace of the game. But against the Texans, it completely vanished. It was hard to believe what was happening on the field. Missed tackles, soft coverage, no pressure on the quarterback. Houston, which had been an average offense until then, faced a unit with no will, no communication, and no confidence. It was one of the most disorganized defensive performances of the Harbaugh era. Every time the Texans advanced, frustration grew. The front seven couldn't stop the run, and the secondary was a step behind on nearly every play. There was no timing, no reads. The opponent did whatever they wanted. Short passes, runs to the middle, big plays, and Baltimore's defense reacted too late every time. It was as if the team had completely lost awareness of positioning and intensity. More than a tactical issue, it felt like an emotional collapse. Players looked unmotivated, and the lack of energy spread across the field. What was once one of the NFL's most feared defenses became a group that projected insecurity. And that kind of thing matters, because when the defense loses its identity, the whole team feels it. Even with key absences like Kyle Hamilton, what stood out was a lack of depth and adaptability. No adjustments worked. No player could change the flow of the game. And when a team used dominating as dominator like this, the effect is devastating. That's when fans started realizing the problem was bigger than just one bad game. The team seemed to be falling apart from the inside out. Of course, Lamar Jackson being out weighs heavily. He's the engine of the offense, the player who can change a game with a single play. But the truth is, even he couldn't have saved Baltimore on Sunday. What happened against the Texans was a collective collapse, and it goes far beyond one injured quarterback. There was a lack of focus, execution, and above all, attitude. It was a team that went out on the field without soul, without the competitive spark that has always defined the Ravens. The offense without Lamar looked completely lost. The game plan was predictable. The play calls didn't work, and the offensive line struggled from the first snap. Passes were short, uncertain, and runs barely gained yards. It was like every player was trying to fix a problem alone, without clear direction. The absence of their leader only highlighted an uncomfortable truth. The team relies too heavily on him to function. But it wasn't just the offense that failed. The defense also showed a team without communication, and the special teams couldn't change the pace at any point. Everything that could go wrong did. And when an entire group collapses at once, the root cause is always deeper. That's when eyes inevitably turn to the coaching staff. Baltimore has always been known for its resilience, a team that doesn't give up, even in the worst moments. But what we saw against Houston was the opposite. A disorganized, apathetic group with no answers. Would Lamar have made a difference? Sure. But when the foundation is cracked, one player alone can't fix it. And that's exactly why the fans, long accustomed to trusting John Harbaugh, began showing something that hasn't been seen in Baltimore for a long time: impatience with their own coach. In Baltimore, the relationship between John Harbaugh and the fans has always been built on respect and trust. Since 2008, he's turned the Ravens into a consistent, winning, and feared franchise. But last Sunday, something different happened. The boos started quietly, then grew louder, until they erupted into a clear, unified chorus as the coach walked off the field. It was a symbolic moment, the first time in years that the fans' patience seemed to run out. The feeling was one of accumulated frustration. Harbaugh is one of the NFL's longest-tenured coaches, but the team looked directionless, lacking intensity, and without any clear identity. Fans, used to seeing a disciplined and competitive team, watched an unrecognizable squad unable to respond. The boos weren't just about the score. They were an outpouring of disappointment, a reaction to a team that promised so much but suddenly finds itself among the worst starts in the Harbaugh era. And what makes it even more tense is the history. Under Harbaugh, Baltimore has only had 2 losing seasons, a record that has always been a source of pride and security. But now, the shadow of a 3rd losing season is approaching, and the confidence that once seemed unshakable is showing cracks. Some fans are already questioning whether the coach still has control of the locker room, whether the team still responds to his leadership. Harbaugh, of course, deserves credit for everything he's built. But football is cruel with the past. What matters is the present. And the present shows a lifeless team, a coach surrounded by doubt, and a stadium that, for the first time in years, doesn't believe what it's seeing. This climate of distrust only intensified when the season's numbers revealed an even more concerning picture. A historically bad start for all the wrong reasons. When a team starts 1-4, alarms go off in any NFL franchise. But in Baltimore, the impact is even greater because this simply doesn't happen. Under John Harbaugh, the Ravens have always been competitive, even in tough years. Now, with only 1 win in 5 games, the scenario is unprecedented. It's only the 2nd time in over 30 years that the team has been this bad this early in the season. And the most alarming part is the way these losses are happening. Heavy, disorganized, and without any fight. The loss to the Texans wasn't just another stumble. It was a major low point. Losing by 34 points at home marks the 2nd largest defeat margin in the entire Harbaugh era. Numbers like this don't match the franchise's standards and highlight the gap between what Baltimore used to be and what it's showing now. It's the kind of streak that shakes confidence, not just for the players, but for the fans and the coaching staff as well. Inside the locker room, the feeling is one of chaos. Players are trying to maintain a sense of unity, but their faces show the weight of knowing the team is on the edge of collapse. Every game now seems like a desperate attempt to prove that the group can still respond. And when this kind of climate sets in so early in the season, it's a sign that something deep needs to change. Baltimore has always prided itself on being a franchise with a strong culture, one that overcomes adversity and doesn't panic. But this start to 2025 is testing the limits of that identity. The team is out of rhythm, lacking confidence, and most importantly, without clear direction. What used to feel like isolated losses now feels like symptoms of something bigger, a team that has lost control of its own destiny. And this instability became even more evident when Harbaugh, visibly shaken, tried to explain what had happened during the post-game press conference.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important, because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
At the post-game press conference, John Harbaugh looked like he was feeling the full weight of what had just happened. The coach, usually calm even in the toughest losses, spoke this time with a more serious, almost shaken tone. He called the performance a complete disappointment and admitted the team urgently needs to find a new path. "We're going to have to figure out who we are," he said, trying to show confidence. But his expression made it clear how much the loss had affected him. Harbaugh talked about rebuilding the team's identity over the next few weeks, using the break before the bye week to reorganize everything and rekindle the competitive spirit. But as well-intentioned as that sounded, the problem runs much deeper than words. The team appeared disconnected from the coaching staff, and what unfolded on the field suggests something is slipping. Maybe the bond between coach and players, maybe the energy that has always defined this group. During the press conference, he also made it clear that responsibility starts with the coaching staff. He admitted that the coaches need to do better, but he emphasized that the players on the field had more than enough talent to perform far better than they did. It was a delicate balance of self-criticism and accountability, a hallmark of Harbaugh's style. Still, the overall feeling was that the coach was searching for answers he might not even have yet. Behind the scenes, the message is one of unity, but it's clear that confidence is shaken. Harbaugh knows the team is at a critical point. One misstep, and the season could slip away completely. The difference now is that, beyond the sporting pressure, there's the emotional weight of leading a group that seems lost. And as the coach tries to pick up the pieces, a new problem emerges. The offense has lost its identity, something that has been eroding the team week after week. The Ravens' offense looked completely disconnected. Without Lamar Jackson on the field, things were tougher, no question, but the issue ran far deeper than just his absence. The team couldn't find a rhythm, the game plan was predictable, and every play seemed forced. Short passes, stuff runs, and poor decisions showed a team lost on the field, unable to impose its style. More than technique, it was attitude that was missing. The offensive line couldn't protect, receivers couldn't create space, and running backs couldn't find a lane. It was as if each player was trying to fix things on their own, without synchronizing with the rest of the team. It felt like the team had forgotten how to play collectively, the essence of what has always made Baltimore competitive. This loss of identity also directly impacted the defense. When the offense can't maintain possession and control the clock, the defense wears down and loses confidence. That happened continuously against Houston. The offense couldn't produce, and the defense sank further with every snap. The result was a vicious cycle of mistakes and frustration that repeated itself throughout the game. The problem is mental. The team went on the field with no energy, no focus, and no belief that they could respond. This lack of competitive spirit spread to the locker room and is now Harbaugh's biggest challenge. It's not enough to fix plays. He needs to restore the winning mindset of a group that has always prided itself on resilience. And if the offense doesn't regain its identity, the worst is still ahead. The pressure to win mounts every week, and the team is quickly approaching the risk of a total season collapse. With a 1-4 start, the Ravens have their backs against the wall. Every loss now carries far more weight than at any other point in the season because the margin for error has all but vanished. The team is under extreme pressure, and everyone knows that more slip-ups could turn the season into a full-blown disaster. The scrutiny isn't just from the fans. It comes from within the locker room, too, as players feel the weight of every mistake, every misassignment, and every poorly executed play. The mood in the locker room is tense. Players are trying to stay calm, but the awareness that the season is on the line weighs heavily on everyone. The team needs to respond quickly, but it's not just about coaching or schemes. This is an attitude, confidence, and unity problem. When the entire group feels the weight of pressure, even small mistakes are magnified, and the team risks spiraling completely out of control. On top of that, pressure comes with expectations. Baltimore has always been a proud, tradition-rich franchise, used to competing at the top of the division and making the playoffs. When results don't show up, frustration grows and the scrutiny from media, fans, and even the players themselves skyrockets. Every game stops being just another matchup and turns into a survival test. This situation makes it clear that the Ravens season could collapse quickly if nothing changes. Harbaugh and his coaching staff know time is running out, and any further misstep only increases the feeling of imminent collapse. This is a moment where every detail, every decision, and every attitude matters, and none of them can be ignored. With all this pressure, the upcoming home game against the Rams becomes critical. It's a chance to show a reaction, but also a harsh test for a team still searching for its identity. Now, the Ravens return home to face the Los Angeles Rams, and this matchup is far more than just another game on the schedule. It's a chance to prove that the historic loss to the Texans was a one-off and not a sign of total disaster. But the reality is harsh. The team needs to respond fast, regain confidence, and find the intensity that has always defined Baltimore. Otherwise, the risk of watching the season slip away grows exponentially. The pressure on the players and coaching staff is immense. Every play, every decision, and every tactical adjustment will be scrutinized. The offense must regain rhythm and identity. The defense must show toughness. And the team's mindset must return to competitive. Winning isn't enough. They need to convince themselves and the fans that hope is still alive for the season. The home crowd will be watching closely, looking for signs of energy, effort, and grit. This isn't just about points on the scoreboard. It's about posture, confidence, and attitude. This is the moment for the team to prove it can overcome adversity, that the Texans' loss was just a stumble, and that the Baltimore spirit is still alive. If the Ravens manage to respond, they can regain some lost confidence and enter the second half of the season with a clearer direction. But if they stumble again, the sense of collapse that already hangs over the locker room and the fans will become even more real. Every detail counts, and the future of the season depends on how the team performs from here on out. What we've seen from the Ravens so far is alarming. A team once known for defensive dominance and relentless intensity now looks lost, drained, and lacking identity. These losses aren't just numbers on a scoreboard. They reveal deep flaws on and off the field, raising serious questions about the ability of the coaching staff and players to respond in time. Now it's up to Baltimore to find itself again. The Rams game isn't just another matchup. It's a chance to prove there's still strength, unity, and competitive spirit in this team. Will the Ravens respond, or will this rough stretch spiral into something even worse? The answer could define the season's future and the legacy of John Harbaugh.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.